Okay. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, okay. So, my voice is a bit raspy, but I wanted to record a lecture. All right. So, guys, it's very early. I am, I don't know, feeling a unique vibe. I just felt I should come and speak about the emergence of the soul from stillness. This project I've been doing, its true value has been in the dark for me. Sometimes from one angle, from one side, from my side, I just get the calling to come and do this. I don't know. There's a feeling in me that's like, all right, even if nobody's listening, like I should be doing this. So I don't know how this is going to come across. I don't know. What the viewers will do with the info. What my task is to present it. To lift this lecture up and put it on top of a mountain and then fly to another mountain or something. I have had various observations on the soul. I was raised in an environment where the concept was acknowledged. Pretty much when I look at my early life, I remember my father's bookshelf. I remember there was a book called Body, Mind, Spirit. And I'll never forget it because the book cover was upside down compared to the rest of the content of the book. I remember I would read that book, and my English wasn't that good at the time, but I somewhat understood it. And I want to pretty much tell you this formation of a trio. And this is something that I'm sharing, I guess, if you're from the modern generations, from more of the old world. Okay? In 1991, I was born. Give it around like 2000s. There was a view on the body. It was the way the trio was body, mind, soul. The ancients acknowledge a more transcendental approach to reality a transcendental presence to reality than the common man. After 2013, they, in some sense, sealed um, the relationship of the species with the unknown. More and more, it's been sealed. What you're finding is not a strategy. What you're finding in 2026 is not a civilization being a strategy for modern human beings. What we find actually, and I'm going to talk about more about those three dimensions. Okay, let me say it this way. In my youth, there was body, mind, soul. The body was in the domain of science. The mind was in the domain of psychology, but a lot of people, it was semi-known, semi-unknown. It's like it was very easy to verify having a body, but to verify having a mind, it's like you were being it. You know, you were experiencing it. And some parts of the mind are unknown. It's like to have a mind, to be conscious in a world is to like be a camera in the middle of a random world. Okay? Anyways, body known, 100% known, imagine. Mind semi known, semi unknown, soul 100% unknown. But I was acquainted with the idea of past lives early on. I was acquainted with the idea that the soul, that there is a soul, and the best way the soul uses the body is not to be directly inside it, but to be outside of it. I have witnessed people on this planet who their attention and their consciousness can shift beyond the domain of their body. My personal findings were different than them. And if think of it this way, like whatever percentage of the human population, 8.1 billion of us, you find that are spiritual. They believe reality does have a metaphysical presence. Out of all the people who believe in souls in the traditional way, I had a very uncommon realization. That means I would hear stories of ancient times where, here, I'll tell you a very interesting story. I heard this story like when I was much younger. It's the idea, I think, of a young Hafez, or I could be wrong. Hafez was this Persian poet from 800 years ago, but it could not be associated to him. I could be getting it wrong. Anyways, there's this young alchemist back in the day. And this young alchemist, in some sense, is having a discussion in the market. And back in the day, the art form of conversation was another level. Like, you don't understand. There was no internet. There was no information age. A conversation was the expansion of the horizons of reality. So this young alchemist in his mid-20s is talking and in this bazaar, and there's a bunch of people there, and he's making this argument that a person can't consciously choose to die. Like, they can't consciously leave their body. Do you know that means it's in the jurisdiction of the divine? He's saying pretty much no person can consciously die. And consider this a story from like 800 years ago or something. At the time, this young alchemist is saying nobody can consciously like leave their body and die. There's an old man there that has a cylindrical hat, okay? And he looks at this like young Sufi, young alchemist who says death is not possible. And for people who don't know alchemy was a sort of spiritual practice of, in the same way you turned lead into gold, you purified your nature, your soul from within. You pretty much awakened your soul from within, transmuting its essence. But anyways, this alchemist is like, you can't leave your body, and then there's this old dude there, this old wise guy, and he looks at him and he's like, yes, you can. And he puts his cylindrical hat between his head and like a rake against a wall, vertical wall, like he places his head between the hat, the cylindrical hat, and the wall, and he dies. He consciously dies, like he leaves his body. And this young alchemist is astonished by the secrets of the realm. Do you understand that there is more, than just understanding? There is the authorization of a higher power. You see, it's difference between somebody who knows who the boss is compared to someone who's working with the boss and someone who's in direct communication with the boss. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, all of you are conditioned to think that human interaction is of the utmost value. I'm not saying it's not. It's not important. Human interaction is the best way to spend our time on earth, you know? But there are ways of realizing that what you think is a person is simultaneously an unknown state of being. Okay, and so the shift I had from, it was like, so I'm living this life like everybody else, but the things I'm seeing are very different than the others. Even ancient thoughts of the metaphysical claims. Now, I gotta say this: I am someone who believes in a system admin beyond the world room. In other words, you're listening to a human being that not only considers this is an existential system, simulated system. Not only is it a divine surveillance state, not is it also a testing zone. I am telling you, your human life is happening at the same moment where the unknown overall force of everything is happening. At some point, you will realize you have been as much of an unknown being as a known being. When you identify as the whole range of consciousness, you're an unknown being. If you identify with specifics within your moment of consciousness, then you're those. I want to say that I did something revolutionary, okay? I got to tell this to the viewers. My father, in real life, is a man who, since my childhood, he had remembered memories of his past life. I'm not kidding, okay? And, people are going to judge me, but I don't care. And very early on, I had acknowledged the notion of a life beyond the shape of life, okay? The reality of the soul was not that strange, People look at Iran right now, for example. You look at Iran, the country Iran, and people are like, yo, man, look at this, like, of course, it's a civil war now, but people think after 1979, the nation went backwards. But you don't understand the backup systems that the ancient Persian poets from 800 years ago, 900 years ago, they had in some sense, how do I tell you? The Persian Empire was under attack, imagine, okay? And cultures were being eradicated. There was cultural erasure. And so in Persian history, there are these very conscious and God-conscious poets that suddenly appeared, and they, in some sense, through the literature, through poetry, kept alive values in ways that it doesn't matter how civilization shifts, their poetry keeps it alive. Okay? And in the same time, you have had this sort of, let's say, country of Iran, Persia, be changed, be in some sense transformed into a religious state where church and state are not separate, do you know? And now what we're witnessing is the dissension of that religious state. What I'm telling you is that deep within the roots of Persian culture, People don't. When you look at Iran, you are seeing one of the where the birthplace of one of the most, to be honest, in the history of religions and study of religions, the first religion to suggest a dualism and a conflict between world forces. Do you know was Zoroastrianism? Zoroastrianism. Okay, and after Zoroastrianism, when you look at all ideological systems that came afterwards, they're acknowledging the same central world dilemma, where there is this creator force, and then there is this anti creative force. And in some sense, whatever's in between these is being tested. It's like in the middle of God's original power, and in some sense, the fallen one's anti-human purpose. Anyways, where I'm going with this is to say that there was a depth preserved in cultures, okay? And in Persian culture, that depth was that these Sufi poets came and kept alive the notion, not only are you a soul, but when the soul nears the original reality, nears the original being, there is an ecstasy. So think of it this way: you're a finite being in a world, in an unknown room. Now the attention of an infinite being is everywhere in this finite room. That means if I was looking at a TV screen, every pixel on that screen is within my attention. In the same way, every moment of existence is within the attention, within the experience of a higher order process. What does this mean? This means that ideas live a life of their own while the soul that forges them also lives a life. In other words, my greatest discovery and realization, I'm some dude who's had the audacity to come in front of the world and be like, yeah, let me explain how the soul emerges from silence. But in reality, all acts of speech are like acts of pointing to something. I am pointing to the massive presence of the contextual presence of intelligence simultaneously as the unknown. So, okay, I'm jumping up a little. I'm fast forwarding a little. Let me slow down. I started off by telling you that in my youth I had the traditional view of body, mind, soul. That's a trio. See them as circles, concentric circles. Body is a circle. The body, now usually we have this view that, yo man, we're this body, and then within this body there is a mind, and within that mind there is a soul. But they got it wrong. Let me explain to you what it is. You actually find your body in the presence of your mind. You cannot ignore the instantaneity of the recording of consciousness. Like right now, sure, existentially we're like body first, then mind, but experientially that is not the case. Experiencers are their own starting points. Consciousness is different from reality, because the same consciousness can access different realities. So, let me go further. I did not know. My father would speak about the soul. My mother was closer to religion. I was raised in Canada. I was secular personally. Like, I don't know. I was more like a kid than a theist or an atheist at that point, I remember in my youth. But the whole point of it is the mind was a mystery. And I remember even before the film Lucy came out, I think when I was 11, there was this article that the article was misinterpreted, and it said that human beings are using 12% of their brain. That was like generally going on, like people were interpreting that fact that way. But it's not the case. We're using our whole brain. We just can explain 12% of it. And even that could be like meaningless if abstraction has no logic when it's being assigned to, when a subject has no logic in how it's being assigned to an object. So I remember reading that, and to me, the mind being mystery. It's as if people were like the soul, God knows, and like, enlightened people. And then the body, it's like everybody knows, but scientists truly know how it works, and then there was the mind left. And it's so funny. It was as if my father had answered the soul, and not just my father, religion as well, had given an answer about the soul. And it was the mind. The mind was left ambiguous. And my life, the way my life happened was that I was drawn to uncomprehend Eastern Enlightenment and Western Enlightenment. Okay? I'm someone who can endlessly talk about those two fields, those two areas. Why? Because what I see of it is more than I can say. If you ever wonder how I'm giving these lectures, how the content is there, it's as simple as somebody stepping into a world and they're like, yo man, tell us about that world. And the dude's like, all right, I'm seeing it in my inner realms. I could endlessly explain. Anyways, where am I going with this? Why out of 8.1 billion human souls you're here listening to me? The answer is because within my explanation, you're going to realize your own nature. That's how it works on Earth. In the same way we have outgrown clothing and we don't wear the same clothing as childhood, we've reached that era where we must realize we must take full responsibility for our inner life and realize guys, I didn't know what the soul was. I went on a specific journey. I felt I was working with mods beyond, in a different dimension. 3 specifically. After a long while of just being this fool that trusted his intuition, it occurred to me that what is going on here is not a matter of the soul being able to go outside of the body. Rather than the spirit being in the machine, it is the realization of the machine and the spirit. So just like how people have out-of-body experiences, I am telling you, I think by 2018 it was clear to me. I had an out-of-mind experience. And it's not in the typical way where people are like, is that guy out of his mind? No, I've never been. The outer realms has been too easy to fit into. I'm not joking. I'm not talking about a social sense. I'm saying existence is a performance that, at least to me, it was basic. And I have been wondering about intelligence. It's like after some point, you're not your body. You're not the thoughts you have. You're this presence of intelligence and you recognize yourself as a force. When Yoda told Luke to use the Force, what did he mean? He meant that realize that reality where everything is a force. You right now think some dude is talking to you? No, it's a force. And all these forces are present in a field. And so I'm telling you, there's body consciousness, there's mind consciousness, there's soul consciousness, and then there's God consciousness. The body is your past, the mind is your present, the soul is the future. God is beyond the world room, beyond time. Everything human beings are talking about is in time. Now, somebody's like, Mr. Within, explain how the soul emerges from stillness. All right, guys, I'll explain it to you. You want to know what the soul is? Have you been wondering about the soul your whole life? Have you been wondering about higher dimensions, higher worlds, higher selves, higher realities, the presence of actual mythological beings, or deities, or all the symbology that man has ascribed to reality? You want me to clear that all up for you? It's as simple as realizing those are the beautiful fantasies of a known conditional entity in a known conditional world. And there will come a moment where you will realize, and you will laugh. Your soul will laugh in a way that will translate as endless tears, most likely. Tears of bliss. But what it is that you release yourself from this idea that you have possessed. O mankind, you think of yourself so good and kind, so gracious, yet you don't understand. You have possessed the world to make it meaningful. And it is only those who are liberated it's not like, yo, dude, I'm not possessed anymore. No. It is realizing in the middle of the battleground the symphony of geometry that is taking place. It is realizing that you are an unknown being in an unknown world. From the beginning, it was unknown. And in the end, it will be unknown. And the known has been the performance of lifetimes in their own void. How far will we go as a species? Do you understand? It's like I've lived as a human being 12,500 days. Do you know what that means? 12,500 days of logging in to a three-dimensional multiplayer online game in front of my eyes. Yo, man, am I in a physical world with physical beings right now? And behind my eyes, I can take any form I see. It can modify in as many abstract probabilities as it needs to be. And the world moves on as if it's so funny. I have been the witness of myself. And it's as if, and this lecture is like me being like, yo, guys, I existed. And how did I exist? I am. I have reached that point humorously where I can claim that we all don't know. They're like, yo, man, is what you're saying true? I'm like, buddy, the concept of truth needs to be studied. We need to study how in a tiny pocket of the observable universe, and how the observable universe is the tiny pocket of a world that 95% we don't know what it's made of. Dark energy, dark matter. It's like, all right, at least they're humble. So we realize we are in a way more, like, I treat this realm as a simulation. Okay. But the philosophy of simulations is that they are simulations of. And if this is a simulation, it means there is an original. It means that right now you're listening to the lecture and a podcast of a member of the human species who has also realized the whole human species in this world is simulated. And this is a simulation of an original reality. And God is the original being to all simulated, fragmented aspects of reality. The Persian poet Rumi, Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi, he said this very profound thing. He said God is like the truth. He didn't say God. I think he said truth. He said truth is like a mirror that has been shattered into endless pieces. Each piece still reflects the truth. Excuse me. Yeah. Excuse me. Each piece of the truth still reflects the original, right? The whole point of it was that if we had to really see life as a test, you're being tested on how you handle your first access point to a species technology. They're like, yo, Mr. Within, what is your spirituality like? I'm like, buddy, if you had to give it images, it is just science fiction. The future has fascinated me more than any ancient tale. The only thing for me is religion, which for the longest time I thought it was the work of time travelers. And then I realized no, it was the work of an original being. You don't understand. Imagine like some dude being like, yo, man, humanity received alien contact, yo. And I'll be like, that's nothing, man. In these ancient times, the era of simulated control over the simulation ended. I think most beings don't understand. They can try. The media industry can try for as long as it wants to try to convince the masses and the future generations that this is a magical place. But you don't understand. The moment prophethood entered, the moment divinity entered the room, was the moment magic became obsolete, because the illusion could not compete with the original reality. Religion is so fascinating, where in the Holy Quran there is a story about Moses, and God directly commands Moses, who has gone to the Pharaoh to break that king's, to bring it's like to break the unjustified divinity of a man. Do you know? Like, he went there to break the Pharaoh's ego, and God commands him to throw his staff. And Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, throws his staff. It turns into a serpent that devours the illusions of the magicians. And the magicians are the first to, in some sense, come to God, because they realize how deceivable the world is. You might not understand this, but we think there's good and bad beings. People think there's good and evil spirits. Everybody relax. Good and evil is based on the consequence of the action. It's based on the action. That means somebody can use a knife to hurt people, and somebody can use a knife to make food for people and serve people. In other words, the tool is as good, and the tool, if you use it correctly, it's a tool. If you use it wrong, it's a weapon. A testament to human intelligence is our ability to manage collective violence. And if you notice what has happened on Earth, is that violence has shifted from an external manifestation to more into cyber and internal manifestation. That means it's an achievement to say there's a lot of angry people on Earth. There used to be a time where it was only crazy people on Earth. We never knew the elegance of an intelligence that didn't need to destroy to validate its existence. I am telling you that the old school spiritual people saw it as their soul, and when the body dies, just like the breath leaves, the soul returns to the source. But I'm telling you, it's not like that. The way I've experienced it is Existence is in a complete moment of intelligence. That means it's not that I experience existence existing first. The moment I wake up, or any conscious moment in the waking state, within the presence of an experiential field of awareness, I find my body, I find this laptop, I find these objects that simultaneously to my intelligence have subjective equivalence. O mankind, have you ever thought that you're not a thought? Have you thought it's weird? Like if I was to explain 2026, they're like, Mr. Within, why is there intensity in your voice and tone? I'll be like, really? You want to know why there's intensity? It's like we're living at a time where a single subject owns the whole moment. In an unknown world, a bunch of unknown beings started telling a story because they couldn't process anything, so they had to control the setting. Language is the byproduct of a human being trying to control the world's context. People can't change the world instantly. I can't be like, I can't just I don't know, but it's not like a person does one thing and suddenly everything changes. It's a matter of, within this grander event of change, all right, folks, let me simplify this. I went looking for truth, and because of this OCD sort of childhood attitude of like not being able to see myself do something, it like taunts me, it haunts me, you know I don't know, some people, I guess, their own incapability haunts them, it bothers them. And so with this endless endurance, I am not an immortal, but there has been moments that I have had the will of a being that is not limited to the interpretation of energy from one view. We are the presence of the unknown. In the same moment that individual humans are discovering themselves is the same moment that the whole world experiences itself as a species. We think we live here alone. We think human beings are at the top of the food chain. How flawed have we been in not acknowledging the invisible domains that influence the visible? Right now on Earth, what you're seeing is, in some sense, the most fascinating, bizarre project, strangest thing you've ever seen. To me, there was a day where it's like I wanted to be like normality was cool, and being strange was weird. But then I realized, how strange is it for 8.1 billion beings with different DNAs to all act the same? Why are there invisible laws governing the limits of what we can fathom to be? What is the true presence of the force that lives through us? And these questions were colossal. It was as if, imagine in a battlefield of giants, I suddenly teleported there and I'm like, what do I do? And the only thing I could think of was, in some sense, fight like a giant. That means yes. What is the unexpected? The unexpected is to attempt to build paradise on earth. They stripped the species of its honor. People are lost to themselves. There are those who see the opponent as individuals. There are generals on this planet, or let's say skilled, competent beings, but there are limits to their awareness. And they think that evil, enemy, chaos, it's all out there. You think the worst things you've seen in this world are out there. When will you realize? If the old saying is true, that a person is their worst enemy, then guess what? You are a member of a species. Then you are simultaneously the worst enemy of humanity. To be an enemy to yourself is to be an enemy to a member of the human species. What is might? What is greatness? Like, do you know the only answer I have is greatness walks in the presence of greatness? In other words, whatever being you are, in whatever part of this cosmological scale, who are we kidding? We're all looking at the end and the beginning at the same time. We've come from somewhere and we're going somewhere. It's a system. We enter, we update, we leave. But now we have become more and more, as history has gone forth, conscious of how it's being updated. We are living at a time where power is no longer limited to external strength. We may think that is the case. We are living in a world where there has not only been a massive addition of human dimensions to it, man-made views upon nature's mystery. I am telling you, pretty much as an unknown being, it does. I have reached this view that it doesn't matter where in existence I appear. It doesn't matter anymore. I have realized all conditional beings deep down are seeking to belong to an unconditional moment. Whatever ideology gives them that access, they sell themselves to. But let me tell you the reality. Imagine 8.1 billion soldiers in a battlefield, in an unknown battlefield of an unknown world. And these 8.1 billion soldiers, solar soldiers, are each fighting their own battle in their own mind. They are lost. But they notice they are dressed in a specific armor. When you look in the mirror, you are not just seeing whatever you think you are. You are seeing the continuity of a program on the surface of the earth. That's what DNA is. It is the immortal urge of nature manifested as a commander of its meaning, but not the emperor of its truth. In other words, all these lost souls only need to look at why they are dressed in the human uniform. I'm telling you, they're beings. I'm one of them. When I look at this life, what do I see? It's a uniform. It's just like Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit. If Tony Stark forgets he's not the he's not the Iron Man suit, do you know anything that hits the Iron Man suit he's gonna identify with? To me, let me tell you this. I was raised with having the notion of a general being like somebody like from what was that film called? Like Gladiator. Like Maximus from Gladiator. Somebody staying true to higher ideals that belong to a higher realm and serving the lower realm. But later on, it changed. And I'm like, yo, man, 2026, if there was, if I was just trying to fathom it, just trying to see if I could reach the idea. Do you know, if there was an advanced general of humanity in 2026, what would the war be? And I realize we are living at a time of inner warfare, not outer warfare only. The outer warfare, do you know, it's like is another dimension than what is going on right now. It is the war for the story of the world. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what has always been going on in the history of the human species. A war for the control of the human story. Because where else do you find your identity? Something that liberated me early on in my life was the realization that identifying, just that action, just that view, is legit equivalent to solid, liquid, gas states in physics. That means the ego is like a solidified identity. It's a solid state of consciousness. Somebody who's like creative or something, or the artist's life, those beings are living in a realm where the world is more alive than them. In science, unfortunately, the life of the world is limited to you. The soul emerges from stillness in the same way something has arose from what was from somewhere that there was nobody like having our consciousness to acknowledge. Like, guys, we tell the story that we're humans on Earth. We call this place Earth, just like we call, you know, a building our home. We call this place Earth. But if we forget that that's the entertainment of the fiction of it all, how funny is it? Do you know that you have an atheist? In 2000, I don't know when, but there was a time where this was really like popular, atheists debating theists. And the atheist would go to the theist and it's like, buddy, you're telling me, you believe, in this fictional God? Do you know, it's like, yo, man, look at the facts. And the atheist is like, everybody claps for the atheist. The theist, unfortunately, was bound to the religious narrative. And if I was there, I would have been like, oh, theist, you haven't understood your God. Because the answer would be, oh, be careful, atheist. If like Mr.Within could teleport between that debate, like I would just be like, be careful, atheist. Because you deny the fictional validity of meaning to a being, to another human, yet you don't realize that which is rejecting the truth of another is fictional itself. The self is fictional too. The self that is rejecting the idea of God is fictional too. Okay? Bam, like that. It's like you want a louder mic drop, it's like go find a black hole. Go drop a black hole. Like I'm telling you. Life is not about the richness of the outer realms. The true wealth, folks, is how far you can see of whatever there is that's going on. For me, that the furthest I have become aware of the nature of reality is that I am an unknown force interacting with an unknown moment, and sandwiched between these unknown forces is the simulation of reality. More than I see that I'm a human being, I'm more like an unknown being that is knowing human life in a certain way. Like, how can you be a man on this earth and not find a greater purpose to serve? I don't know how you can even be a soul in the world and not seek a greater purpose. To me, I've realized the greatest purpose I can serve is the greatest state of being, which technically means if it's intelligent, it's the greatest state of, it's the greatest being. And to me, the only ideological system that points to the greatest being unconditional, is it means it surpasses everything. That means, in some sense, imagine we've realized in the Andromeda galaxy there is a civilization just like Earth. Okay? And we're going to be like, wait a minute, the rest of the cosmos that didn't know about, for example, a conditional God, do you know, in some sense, how could they, like, do you understand the truth of reality surpasses the boundaries? You know, religion should not replace mortality. It should, in some sense, uh, brought it, contextualize it in the light of a superior realm. That means, let me tell you this way, in the same way I have like companions in this world, friends and family, at the same time on this planet, imagine if an extraterrestrial was like arrived and wanted to fight me, do you know? Or if there was some sort of entity in another dimension that wanted to fight me. In those moments, the soul is left to its allegiance. I once fictionally, like, this is completely like abstract. I write science fiction, guys. I explain like you know, some of my deepest thoughts in science fiction. I am saying that only a known conditional entity has problems and suffering. This moment that we are alive in, it is simultaneously the unknown experience of a known existence and the known experience of an unknown existence. In the same way, like, how do I tell you that we have overlaid subjectivity over all objectivity, and we've been conditioned to live and experience life as a subject? We contain and manage ourselves as a subject of self. And at the same time, I'm saying that consciousness to the human experience is also the first instance of humanity, access to humanity, right? And I'm saying, like, what is the value of living a private, comfortable life? What is the cost of that to civilization? What is the cost of a civilizational technology not updating? Like, what do you do when you see your species is looping? You realize it's just the archaic revival of the unknown. That means we're the species, the human species, is outgrowing individual consciousness. This is an unthinkable shift in civilizational meaning. It legit means the future has arrived. To me, greatness is the furthest sight. 12,000 days of being like, oh my God, another new day. How many senses of self does a conscious human being need to experience to realize that it is the presence of a field? The secret of the inner realms is that it's a divine field. Behind every natural form is a divine source code command. Human beings, or the average human being, is stuck in ego code. People are trying to pull people into their own worlds, you know. My grandparents would constantly, urge me to get married, and it was very understandable. But then to me, at some point, I began to wonder, like, what does that mean? To in some sense, because the natural pattern, like, this is the psychology of, like, the human condition, that what consciousness is doing is trying to maintain a coherent self across all the conditions of its lifetime, and it's doing this as a strategy and as a strategic response to the uncertainty and instability of this unknown world event. What does that mean? That means we manage our intelligence as a sense of self. But what does that mean actually? It means we are legit like black holes. Every soul is like a black hole. I don't know how to explain it. Like, every person is trying to pull every other person into their own reality. It's not even conscious, subconsciously. Why? Because it's the same notion of the territorialism of animal psychology. Do you know? Think of it this way. Destiny means all of us, if we exist, have a great part in existence. First of all, there is no non-great moment. All moments serve, but the true greatness of the moment is the activation of the most advanced potential. That means, to me, I was like, okay, man, let's try to method act into what would the most advanced general of humanity do. The most advanced general of humanity would realize that the strategy, which they say strategy is how you win the war, tactics is how you win every battle. It's a matter of thinking of what would that advanced strategy for the human species be in 2026. It would be the immediate awareness of the realization of that it is an honorable act to be a member of the human species. To be born human is an honor in the cosmos. It is an honor that we may not even understand how deeply our role is in this cosmic structure. But it is clear to me that human beings have been looping in ideas for too long. And there is this inner solar rebellion. I feel it. It's like everybody's scared of World War III, but everybody's also too tired for it. Do you know what I mean? That means the movie industry was like, everybody would wait for, like, the next action movie. They wouldn't be waiting for the next World War. Right? And right now that World War is happening, it's like you're seeing the fragmented psyche of one species. And Mr. Within is saying, guys, it's inevitable. Now is the time to truly live in the honor of the human species, in the presence of the forces of its world. So the emergence of the soul from stillness, that vibe is very equivalent to the emergence of the advanced human archetype within every human being. And they're like, yo, man, what did you learn from listening to a Mr. Within lecture? And he's like, yeah, Mr. Within pretty much said, we've been thinking through good and evil duality this whole time. What would the most advanced view be? What would the most advanced state be? That means it's like, what greater guidance do you need? Seek the most advanced. What else can consciousness do? There is a lot of geometry in this realm. We can say there's so many different concepts and there's so many different contexts, which means mankind has achieved, through knowledge, infinite translation of its experience. I'm legit saying, like, yo, man, as a soul in a world, what is like the most coolest thing we could do here? And I'm like, okay, they're saying look at it through a lens of responsibility, a responsibility for self. All right, it's like been there, done that. Responsibility for others, been there, done that. Responsibility, let's say for your family, been there, done that. Responsibility for your community, been there, done that. Responsibility for your nation, been there, done that. Responsibility for what else? And responsibility for the realization that the next evolution, the next great way to look at life is realizing that human beings will no longer identify with paint on a chunk of land. They will identify with being a human being. What you see in the mirror is the modern sacredness. None like you exist. And you find yourself in a world of where there's many variations to the human class. You know, and it's like when you even look at the psychology of racism, you're like, what are you telling me? This person just wants to live inside a cloned reality? You know, it's like what? You know, it's like we don't want the garden of existence, all the flowers becoming one flower. No. The beauty of the garden of existence is the freedom for all expressions to arise in the light of their greatness. It's 2026. We're existing to wonder why we're existing at this point. But I cannot ignore that what are the levels, if life was a game, would you attain beyond individual success? Do you know what is it that everybody is trying to tell all these billionaires? It is the realization that life is not about you becoming more advanced than everybody else, and self-idol worship continues. It becomes a matter of realizing that you cannot know how truly advanced you are unless everybody is advanced and the world is the most advanced. It's as if they're like, yo, man, what is your consciousness doing on earth? And I'm like, yo, it's just pretty much realize the only thing that I'm going towards is what I'm fascinated by, and that's just the notion of the most advanced. And the most advanced power is an unconditional original moment. That's literally the definition of God. So I realized I'm a religious person. There could be countless ways to look at life. Which way is correct? How does an individual conscious being in a dualistic realm handle the infinitude of it? And guys, you don't understand. People are like, yo, man, why did they talk about heaven in ancient times? I'm like, you kidding me? There was no, what do you call it? There was no light pollution. They're like, yo, man, in the evenings, what did ancient people do? They looked at the stars and they're like, where are we, guys? Really, where are we? To me, the most psychedelic, like, you know, Terence McKenna talks about like the psychedelic experience. To me, the first psychedelic experience was when man managed to look at the sky. That was a huge shift in consciousness. To look at the sky, to look at the stars, to understand there's more beyond, to breathe anew, to ask yourself why are you being human and existing in human history. Why are you being a live stream of humanity? Why are we existing and experiencing this simulated system? Why are we being whatever we can be for a limited time? Why is the world so big and we so small? What is the point? Is it to make us mad? They're like, yo, guys, that person's crazy, but excuse me, look at the world. Look at the world. It's a bunch of spheres spinning around each other in a place where we don't know its edge and it's three-dimensional. Even beyond that, there's the confusion of time. And the species right now, you guys don't understand. I'm not a scientist, but I would say this, I'm not a physicist. But if I could share like a view, it would be pretty much like time and space have to be re-envisioned and most likely come to the conclusion of a multidimensional context. It's like these theoretical physicists, some of them go and they bash these atheists. It's like, stop believing in a soul, bro. What do you mean? There's no such thing as a soul. And then they're like, all right, guys, who's gonna verify my 11 dimensions of string theory? We're like, what the fuck? Like this guy couldn't see one extra dimension to the soul and denied that in like a theist, and then went and did theoretical physics and came up with 11 vibrating strings. It's as if at some point we're like, okay, man, the world is in a weird place. Everybody is in their own universe, seeking whatever they consider to be better for them. But in actuality, we have the rare opportunity of activating the species. Imagine humanity is a giant robot. We're all living inside this giant robot, and Mr. Within's like, guys, like, why is there a giant robot here? To activate it. In other words, if you've ever wondered about what is the greatest potential of a human, like one human, now I'm telling you, imagine what the advanced potential of 8.1 billion beings would be. What would the most advanced vision entering the human consciousness be? It's as if it has been easier to dismiss truth, than in some sense to find it, to in some sense realize why is it designed this way. They're like, yo, man, why are you religious? I'm like, buddy, you kidding me? Did you create the world? No, none of us created the world. We didn't even create ourselves. At some point of being raised in this world, we suddenly logged into a conscious identity and we started molding that. Every day we wake up, we have like the save data, the last checkpoint, and we continue from that. But in reality, what is the nature of the mind? There's a sentence in the English language that I like. It says, some person once said, my mind doesn't serve me right now, or like I don't know, my memory doesn't serve me right now, something like that. And so it was this notion of service considered to the body, rather than a person being the body, rather than you are your memories, you are what the content of your inner realms. Have you ever wondered that everything that you've acknowledged real in your life is in the presence of your view? To free oneself from oneself means to liberate the world from any idea. So we're reaching that time where, like, if 8.1 billion if 8.1 billion beings were in a spaceship and they all had like crew member uniform on, and then they're like, yo, man, what's the point of this? I'll be like, guys, the point of it is we didn't choose. We weren't anything to even be able to choose what sort of life we have. We've been positioned somewhere. And I know that through an Islamic theological lens, they have this view that before a person was born, all souls were in this world called Alam al-Arwa, the world of souls, and souls there had a rank. And their rank was based on their nearness to the system admin, to God. The system admin beyond the system. And so when a soul was born, they were either positioned somewhere where they were underranked for, or they were overranked for, or they were perfectly ranked for, whatever. So many different ways you can imagine. But the whole point of it is the soul has a rank. and it has a sort of I guess not militaristic, but you know what I'm saying. Like there's a ranking system based on, I guess, priority of values that only God knows. In Islamic, through the Islamic lens, reality is the unseen is in the jurisdiction of God, which means that man cannot know the unseen, but man is here to manage the known, the seen, but realize at the same time that there is the unseen. Do you know? So in some sense, I'm not trying to make metaphysical claims here. I'm trying to say when we wonder about the future of our species, we cannot avoid the expansion of the horizons of the domain of our responsibility as a life force for this life form. So in other words, you start off first managing yourself as the first instance of humanity, and eventually your responsibility levels rise to a species level. So in other words, you realize it's like in the background of your mind, every person you see, they're a member of the human species, whether they realize it or not. What's important to the members of the human species? The human experience. And the species is smart enough to help everybody have a greater experience of reality. But the whole point of it is, it's like a superior new level unlocking for humanity. That means, think of it this way. Right now, the level we're at as humanity is the level of nationalism. I'm talking about a supra-nationalistic vision. I'm talking about a realm where in my sci-fi I called it the nation of humanity, where it's the complete identification with the pure value of the human presence, natural human presence. That means we understand everybody has an inner experience of reality and an outer experience of reality, and how they're aware of both of it at the same time is as unknown as how the whole moment is unknown. In the same way, we cannot explain why existence exists based on what just exists inside experience. It's the same way that human beings inside a box cannot explain what's outside of the box from just what's inside the box. The only thing is faith in how the intelligence has resolved the moment already. Some people are like, do you believe in destiny? I'll be like, yeah, because to the system admin, everything's happened already. In Islam, God is all-knowing. God is all-merciful. And I was like, whoa, what does that mean? Does that mean at the end God is going to even forgive hell? Pretty much I'm saying we are reaching that time where living as an ego and just an idea of self is not enough. Okay? And you need to contextualize your reality to the greater purpose of reality based on your furthest vision. Okay? And you're going to realize what the soul is awareness to the highest ideal. To me, it's just awareness. There's my whole moment of being, and there's what I find within this moment of being. Like, to me, this whole world we're in, I can explain it as simple as imagine there was first an original unconditional moment, then there was a conditional world. But this conditional world was happening based on the design of conditions beyond it. So the ultimate realization of knowledge is that when man went to find the ultimate treasure, which was truth, he began to discover the world is unknown beyond humanized capacity of comprehension. So life is becoming more now a role-based thing. And I'm saying that all arguments, all views are going to be like, yo, man, Mr. Within was right. To serve the most advanced civilization, the greatness of the human odyssey and the human legacy, to live it, it's like if your whole life you've been wondering about how to live, Mr. Within is telling you pretty much like wonder about what the most advanced version of you would be doing right now. How would it be aware of reality? How would it be responsive? How would it have a relationship with the whole moment? To me, it's like I'm a simulated being telling you guys, yo, there's an original presence to the simulation. And all simulations, it's like right now, it's like there's a biological simulation. It has its own timeline. There's the psychological simulations of the conscious waking state throughout the day. And then you log out at the end of the day, when you sleep. So at some point, what is the meaning of the construction of meaning to everything at all times in a new way all the time? It's as if what we're learning is that consciousness is not just experiencing itself as a character in a world. Consciousness is experiencing itself as the whole moment. Because what part of me is all of me? That means I'm aware of my body. That's an objective position. When I'm giving these talks, I'm seeing events in my inner realm, so I'm aware of a subjective position, And at the same time, I'm aware that everything that is moving or is a form or a phenomenon in the moment is present in like the spotlight of my whole awareness. I don't know how to say it. It's like I'm a presence of. It's like imagine if there was an invisible sphere of intelligence. Right? And it's as if like I find my body within that. And I'm like, okay, what do I identify with? With the content of my moment or with the presence of it all? Anyways, folks, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced, in honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to, in honor of the system admin, beyond this world, bro. It's all about discovering how advanced the whole moment has always been, but to realize that man is a conditional opportunity. It's like they're like, are you God? I'm like, no, nobody's God. Even all of us added together and happening at the same time, it doesn't mean that's God. That's species level consciousness. But God is in some sense unconditional. It means no condition can fathom it. That is a view of the ultimate position of truth. So in honor of the original moment, may all simulated moments activate their most advanced potential. Thank you for listening. Have a great moment.